Hey everyone, Josh Taylor here from Woof to Wow. I am here with a very special guest. I have Sam Havill. Havill?
Havill.
Sam Havill from West Island Cats and Dogs. How's it going?
It's going well. Thanks for having me.
For sure, for sure. So, Sam is, I feel like saying competitor
A little bit, yeah.
You know, it's yes and no,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, I love the relationship we've kind of built over the years, you
Yeah.
know? It's like I feel safe, you know,
is a
with,
safe
with
zone.
you, as opposed to, well, we have some competitors out there that are,
Sketchy.
yeah, and a little bit more like doing a podcast with them would probably not be
Yeah.
a
Well,
fun experience.
Yes. Agreed. I could see that for sure.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about how you got into what you do?
Okay, perfect. So we started, oh my God, all the way back in 2013 with just cat sitting. So we were originally West Island Cats, and we built up such a good service and such a good referral program. You know, word of mouth is your best
Oh my
asset.
gosh, absolutely.
That we quickly, and I'll say quickly, within 5 or 6 years, became quite busy. And it was, instead of just me doing everything, at that point, I think we had probably 10 or 12 sitters around Montreal.
Oh my gosh.
And currently, actually, it's even bigger than that. We're at about 20 people
Holy
across the
smokes.
city. So we were just cats for the longest time. And then in 2019... something happened, and my husband, actually, no, what happened was we had a difficult dog at home.
Okay.
And we needed extra help with him. And that opened the world of dog training for me and my husband. So as we were studying, we were starting to work with dogs, and we opened our dog walking service, our enriched dog walks, which are a combination of physical exercise and mental exercise so that everything gets worked out. And from dog walking, we were then shut down by COVID. Yay, COVID!
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a challenge, but we actually were able to use our dog training abilities, because dog trainers were still an essential service.
Yeah.
That we were still able to help people throughout. And
Thank
also,
goodness.
yeah, and also keep the business running, right? Because
It was a tough time.
it was tough.
You know, I think we were the lucky ones in many ways.
Yes.
Especially when that came out there, that we were essential. And I think a big part of why we became essential, because we weren't at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It
We-
took about 3 months, I think.
It
before
took a while.
Yeah.
It might have been even longer than
Yeah?
3 months. Yeah, maybe not.
Okay.
Maybe you're right. But I noticed that so many people were getting dogs.
Yes.
And that must have been one of the reasons why they were like, okay, dog trainers need to be like essential, because everyone was getting a puppy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like
And
it was the only thing to do.
it was the only thing to do, and that took up all your time, because puppies take up so much time
Yes.
and effort. And then I guess they saw a good measure. Let's put out the dog trainers so that we don't have crazy dogs, although we kind of ended up with crazy dogs, the COVID dogs, right? But, you know, circling back, we went through our dog training. We started dog training, and we started actually doing cooperative care grooming during the COVID shutdown as well, because dogs needed to be groomed, and we were training them to be groomed. So typically, dogs are, I'm gonna use the terminology. Typically, they are pushed through grooming sessions to get it all done in an hour and a half, 3 hours, whatever it is. But a lot of dogs will either fight back or they'll shut down. And so we found a great educator, actually just out in Eastern Quebec, that taught us how to teach dogs to be groomed and how to be comfortable with it. So that opened up a completely other door for us. And we're one of the only ones in Montreal that still offer that service. Most of the groomers around are traditional groomers, and we've just kind of taken it to a whole new level.
It's amazing. And that's, for people listening, that's really like a force-free concept.
It's a force-free event. To give you a little bit of a summary of what happens in the first session, Nothing from the dog happens in the first session. The first session is literally a meet and treat where we allow the dog to come and get used to the environment, used to us, see where there's possible limitations, see if the dog is able to jump up on the table themselves. Once they do, if they do, we allow them to get back down. We have no bars and no attachments on our tables. The dog stays on the table because they want to.
I love that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And when it's too hard for them, they can get down and go get a drink of water, or we take them out for a bathroom break. I mean, how many videos have you seen of traditional groomers getting pooped on? Well, not pooped on, but on the table or in the salon. That doesn't happen because we let them out for a break. We take them for a break. It changes the brain chemistry.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Thanks.
And in the sense of the force-free dynamics, do you find that it can be difficult for people to go from like let's say someone who owns their dog and it's been traditional and now the dog is completely crazy when they go to a groomer's because the dog was forced, the dog was, whatever, and now they're coming to see you, in the sense of, I'm sure there must be clients that are like patient, that understand the process. And then I'm assuming there's probably some that are like, I just want like my nails cut. How do you kind of go around that?
So we have an intense intake method.
Okay.
That typically, in a way, doesn't necessarily make the ones who want the quick stuff shy away, but it tells them what we're about. So what we're about is mental clarity from the dog, mental acceptance, and a good state of being while they're with us. If the dog is shaking, if the dog is panting, if the dog is giving stress signals, we stop. We don't push past threshold. So the ones that typically come to us are the ones that dogs have bitten their past groomers.
Yeah.
So we know
you're already kind of against the grain.
We are against the grain. So we know that we have to tread lightly. But we do not use muzzles. We do not use restraints. So we tread light enough in respect to what the dog can accept for the dog to start to build confidence with us and start to trust us. So I've heard you mention in the past about a trust bank.
Yes.
Yeah, we have major trust banks with our dogs, so that when they offer us a sign of appeasement, we stop. Because they're communicating with us. We're trusting their communications. They trust us to stop. So it can be lengthy. It can be quick. It depends on how bad the dog was damaged.
For sure.
Yeah. And how do we navigate that with clients? It can be tricky. We have to know the expectations up front and then be quite honest with clients saying this may or may not happen. And we go from there.
Yeah. I wish... And maybe some do, but I wish that people would maybe, at least I feel like just from what you're telling me, I wish that people would understand that grooming style is the same concept as training.
Exactly.
And chances are a lot of people don't look at it like that.
Exactly.
And they should be.
They should.
There should be a lot more talk about that, in the sense, there could be a lot more talk about dogs going to veterinarians.
Yes.
And what we should expect. And I've been guilty of being in a scenario with my own dog where I'm like, yeah, okay, just hold the dog and do it, or whatever, right? So, I mean, getting to the point where people understand that like it's a process and it takes time, and building that bank, building that savings account, so that when we do withdraw, it's not, a huge smash in the account, right?
Yes.
And
you have to remember, we're constantly filling that account back up.
Exactly.
So when you do withdraw, the next 2 or 3 things that's happened, you've added back into that bank account, right?
Yeah.
So.
And I'm curious, if you were to get a dog acclimated to a muzzle in a very positive manner, is that acceptable in the sense of a force-free grooming? If the dog is completely acclimated, the dog is perfectly fine with the muzzle, there are no signs suggesting that the dog is like not comfortable.
So I wouldn't say that it's not possible. I haven't done it. Maybe let me rephrase that. I know that it's possible to completely acclimate a dog to a muzzle and them have no issues wearing it.
Mm-hmm.
I've never groomed a dog who, in the past, had bitten somebody who even showed me the sign that they were going to bite me.
Okay.
So I've never come to the point
But
where
that's good.
It's fantastic. But I've never come to the point where I'm like, I need to muzzle your dog to trim its butt hair.
Right.
No. If I can't trim its butt hair, it's because it's not ready.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, so I'm not opposed to it, but I've never had to use it.
Yeah. That's really awesome, though.
Yeah.
So West Island Cats and Dogs has so many moving parts, right?
Oh my
And
gosh,
you guys
yeah.
are huge.
I wouldn't go to say.
Well, over 20 staff. You're
Yeah.
doing dog sitting, cat sitting, dog walking,
Yeah. Dog training
dog training,
and cooperative care.
and cooperative care.
And maybe something in the future.
And you have the grooming.
Yeah, that's the cooperative. But cooperative
That's
care.
the cooperative. Okay.
Yeah, but the groom. So actually, cooperative care goes in many different tangents.
Right.
So, like you said, it is training. So you can train to groom. You can train for vet. You can train for daily life. You can train for medical care at home. Cooperative care is just basically getting your animal to cooperate with you, no matter what you need to do with them,
Right. In a force-free environment.
in a force-free environment.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Very cool.
So tell me a little bit about how Woof to Wow came about.
Well, the podcast, it must be what now, 7 years or so, where it's been kind of in the works, so to speak. I got into it because my big goal was to go online.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I want to build a podcast, get my voice out, let people hear me. It was funny too, because the first year or two, I mean, I had like 2 listeners.
Yeah.
And it was probably family.
Props to the 2 listeners.
Yeah, thank you. Versus now, it's crazy. I have like fan mail that comes from like Australia.
That's so
I got a client in Dubai, so we Zoom.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I've even had other dog trainers reach out to me talking about training and asking for like little tidbits of advice. Not that I'm like the supreme god of dog training or anything, but it's nice. It's nice
It
when someone
feels
reaches
good.
out. Yeah, it feels
Yeah.
great. My business, Canine Education, I started, it's almost been 20 years.
That's amazing.
And it started in a little place called L'Académie Canin in Laval.
Okay.
I was working as a dog trainer. Well, no, let me rephrase that. I was picking up dog poop.
Okay, yeah, that's where
So,
it starts.
yeah. And I was actually big goals, big ambitions. I was becoming a veterinarian. That was the goal. Yeah. So I'm becoming. I wasn't even in med school, but I was, the moving parts were happening. I was doing a bachelor in sciences. Like that was my big goal. I just absolutely loved what these people were doing at this place, L'Académie Canin. And they ended up shutting down, unfortunately. But when they did, I'm still great friends with her now. I'm not going to put any names, but she told me, she was like, this is your calling. I was kind of like, yeah, well, I'm going to school. But it was something in the back of my mind that just kept, I was like, yeah, I really do love this. And it's crazy, but I dropped school.
Just like that.
Just like that. Everyone, my girlfriend at the time thought I was crazy. Everyone thought I was crazy, pretty much. At that time, I don't think I was really talking to my parents much. So it's funny because I talk about that often, about how like that influence there could have possibly made me not go into this career. Nothing against my parents.
No,
but
no.
when someone loves you, right, and they care about you, and you're saying, I'm going to leave university to...
in the medical field.
to become a dog trainer, right? I mean, at the time, it doesn't sound very great. Right? So in the sense of family, like a father or a mother, even me, I could see myself being a little bit like, okay, dude, like, what do you mean? Kind of thing, right? I didn't have those influences, but I definitely felt it from like my girlfriend at the time, from their parents at the time. Like, are you stupid, Josh? Like,
Yep. Yep.
That kind of stuff. And I kind of just dived into it. And I got my first certification. I don't even remember. I don't even remember.
20 years ago. Where's your brain going, Josh?
I think it must have been because when I learned what I learned at L'Académie Canin, it wasn't science-based.
Right.
It wasn't 20 years ago. It was pretty much yank the dog so the dog understands
Aversion training.
Definitely. It was probably only maybe about 5 years later where I was, okay, like I really loved Dr. Dunbar, Dr. Ian Dunbar. And that's kind of the philosophy I started to get into from that point forward. I think a few things kind of made me get into that level of the science-based version, the no aversive methods, etc. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that, I don't know, I kind of felt like I was taking the soul away from my dog.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't have kids at the time, obviously, but I kind of thought about kids.
Okay.
And I was like,
would I raise my kids like this?
Exactly. And I know it's so, for a lot of people to think like that, it's a dog, kind of behavior.
But the reality is, dogs are the equivalent to a toddler.
Yes.
Mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
That's where they reside.
Yeah.
So would you do something to your 3-year-old that you would do to your dog? And vice versa. And if the answer is no, probably you shouldn't be doing it.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. So I just said to myself, like, okay, so Dr. Ian Dunbar, I don't know if you know this.
Okay, sorry.
I know you know him.
Yeah.
He was doing science-based dog training the day I was born, 1984.
You're a baby.
But if you think about that, at least to me, the reason why for me it was so powerful was I was positive that when I was learning what I was learning, that there was no positive reinforcement. You know what I mean? That this was the way, the Cesar Millan way, you could say, I guess,
yes.
in some ways. I was sure that was it. That was dog training, And so when I found out this guy was doing it since 1984, he was one of the first dog trainers. I mean, he's a veterinarian as well, but he was one of the first who created off-leash puppy classes.
Oh, wow.
Where he created that science-based positive reinforcement, force-free, like we let the puppies work, we worked the training with 0 leashes.
Okay.
It was a very cool concept.
It's still a cool concept.
It is.
We still don't do it like that
Exactly.
for the most part.
Exactly. And that was definitely some of the ambitions I brought into my classes, where it was a lot more kind of freedom, so to speak.
Dynamic
and
versus
people
static.
loved it. My classes were just going through the roof. People loved them so much. And I think it had a lot to do with just that dynamic of there's no rules.
Yeah.
I mean, to a degree.
Yeah, of course. Of course. But the freedom of walking into that class versus walking into a class where you are leashed up, you need to have your manners, sit next to you and be quiet, puppy. But now this puppy class, where the puppies maybe are interacting a little bit and then you call them back into their sit next to you, it's a much more joyous experience.
So much so. People out there, you're probably wondering, why are we together, Sam and I? Why are we having this podcast? Obviously because her business is super interesting. She is, at least competitor-wise, probably one of the hardest workers I know.
Thank you.
And my pleasure. And so we are going to throw a little tease in there.
Dun, dun, dun.
And we are talking about building something, her and I, where we will be, what's the right word? Because I don't want to say that our businesses is our businesses, like we want to help more people.
Yes.
And what's combination-wise business, how much years of experience would we have? I mean, we're talking
Over
like
3 decades.
Yeah, right. So over 30 years.
Yeah.
So we have been talking about putting our knowledge together and building some online and possibly local courses.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that's going from business, dog business, cat business, where of course we are professionals.
Yes.
And diving into not just the training itself, but the actual business. What do I do? How do I start the business?
Yes.
There's so many more dog sitters, dog walkers. Well, we got Rover now.
Oh boy, Rover, don't get me started. Really? Yeah. I'm not a fan. That's all.
And on top of it, it's kind of like Uber in a way, where it's like they get, it's that middle guy.
Yeah.
So
who
anyone
could potentially know nothing.
Yeah, anyone can do it now.
Anyone can do it.
Yeah.
No education.
Exactly.
No insurance. No training. Who knows? No backups.
I feel you on that. I do. So we wanted to talk about that little tease that we're going to start creating something together. So I want everyone to stay tuned. And I know that there are probably tons of people in the industry who also listen to this podcast. Can't just be the pet owners. And I'm sure there's tons of pet owners who have thought about, I think almost every single dog trainer that I've trained started, well, not all of them, but most of them started as a client.
Yeah.
They saw the passion. They were like, wow, I love this. They wanted to be a part of it, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you must have had tons of people like that.
The first, I'm going to say, I think the first 4 cat sitters that I brought on were all clients. And it was, they were impressed by my service. I was equally impressed by how they took care of their cats. And so we knew that we were good for each other. Just the same way that me and Josh kind of know that we're good for each other because we have the same type of principles in our business, the same ethics that we train by, and the same goal of kind of just broadening our reach and being able to help more people. Like, we're both passionate people, and to forward the dog training world in a positive way, with positive reinforcement, with empathy, with literally with love and education, what could be better?
Yeah, I'm just, I'm going to reach for the stars here for a second. I'm just going to say that I know we're both aligned with this. I wanted to get to the point where we are not only changing the industry, but people look at us in the sense of a standard.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's tons of certifications. Not a lot of people know this about me, but for example, 95% of my certifications are European.
Oh.
I'm very much into the European style of science-based dog training. It's just my own humble kind of comment, but I just find that they're way more advanced than us.
Okay.
And part of that is like Dr. Ian Dunbar, where this is of course European. So you're going to say?
Do you feel it was because they've been practicing it for longer, or that Europeans are more, they follow the rules of something better?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I really do. I think it's a little bit of both. And I guess I just want us to get to the point where, you're not humble when you say you're humble, but I feel like I want to get to the point where we are humbly a standard where people can kind of look at us and be like, I want to learn from them because this is how they do things.
Yep.
And there's that standard.
Yep.
Regardless of what our backgrounds are, the experience and stuff we have, I feel like we have the capabilities to set that standard, have that certification, so to speak.
Yep.
When you learn from us, like you get this XYZ kind of thing.
Yes. And it's all from a good place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to go on a tangent, but
tangents are fun sometimes. Bring it.
I was, not so much anymore, but I'm getting back into it. I was so hyper-focused on the service dog industry. Very much so, where for many years, actually, I almost stopped doing dog training, and I just focused on the service dog industry while my staff and everyone was doing the other stuff. And it's extremely gray, the service dog industry.
There's not a lot of certification, what you need, what you don't need, what qualifies.
And at the end of the day, it's a dog trainer certifying you, no matter how you look at it. All of those companies, at the end of the day, it's like you and I.
Right.
And we are just saying...
We approve.
We approve.
Yeah.
The dog training was done here. I am not trying to say that in a way to, especially if any of those people are listening, I'm not saying it in a sense of don't deserve what you did or what you got. What I'm just simply saying is that people like us who have the experience we have, there is no reason why we can't do that and maybe even make it some form of standard. And that's something I've always really wanted to dive into. I had a sister company where I was doing pet therapy, and we were in 13 to 17 elementary schools.
That's awesome.
And what I was doing was I was basically leveraging my business to get the schools to understand that, okay, this guy's legit. Like, he has a real business. Like, he's a dog trainer. He's been doing this for this long. It's positive, right? I mean, we're not smacking the dog in front of the kids, right? Like, everything is great. And I was able to use my own clients, the top of the top. You know what I mean?
You gotta bring in the best with the little kitty.
Exactly. Right? And to me, my son has autism. And to me, that was one of the most joyful things ever. And I remember, though, one thing that I got commented on often was, where are these dogs certified? Okay.
Right.
And so I would, of course, say, naturally, they're certified through Canine Education.
Right.
These are our pet therapy dogs.
Okay.
Not only did they go through puppy, we'll just call it base 1, base 2, but they also went through, I had a literacy program in my studio.
I remember.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
And so we would use the dogs, and we would even use my children, and we would test, and I would go through a rigorous formula of tests with the dogs to make sure that things were good or we were in good shape, along with the insurance and all of that stuff. Just to say that, to me, that's legitimate enough for us to be able to do something like that and create that standard. I'm just really excited about where we can kind of bring all of this.
Same. The future is unwritten. So they say, or maybe not. Maybe everything is lined up for us, but with an open viewpoint, with an open heart, with an open mind, you can kind of do anything you want. So I think we have some work ahead of us.
For sure.
And if we didn't have work ahead of us, everyone would do it. But I think we've got the brains and the passion and the compassion.
Yeah, you definitely have the brains. I bring a little bit of the passion.
Shushy.
Not that you don't have passion.
Shushy.
You have tons of passion, but...
Yes, but I mean, passion comes from the heart, but you have to articulate it through the brain. So
True. Yeah.
Josh likes to sell himself short. Just kidding.
But the tangent is just about over, everyone, in the sense of the pet therapy and all of that. But I do feel like if you look at service dogs, you can go onto the International Service Dog website, you fill out the info, they send you a little card saying that your dog is a service dog.
Done.
And 99% of the time, the companies are getting a little bit more difficult, but a lot of the times the businesses will allow that.
Okay.
So that's what I mean by how gray it can be.
Right. It's a little bit exactly how dog trainers are trained, that gray area that you want to now put a standard to, or be able to at least maybe rise the standard in Montreal first.
Yeah.
And then eliminate the gray zone.
Yeah. And that's just it. Imagine if we can, this is obviously just in the back of my mind, but imagine we create something where people can do an actual quiz of stuff that they should have done with that dog.
Right.
In order to suggest that this is
a service dog.
And I'm not saying that, because I will be the first one to say, for the record, I absolutely love when I hear people who are doing the training themselves, in the sense of they got this dog and they have seizures and they now want this dog to be their service dog.
Okay.
I love that, because the background of this, but like you could be waiting 10 years for a service dog.
I did know that.
Yeah, it's crazy the wait time. And then if you go private, you could be looking at 60,000.
What?
Yeah.
Because the amount of training that goes in.
Of course,
Yeah.
which I'm not saying it's not worth it.
No.
I'm just saying, like,
It's
60
who can
grand.
really afford that.
Exactly. So I have to say it's very close to my heart in the sense of my son. And so when I get people like that, I want to help them. It would just be nice if that standard is elevated. I'll give you an example. I have a dog who's in a private school. The dog basically is there full time. Okay. And one of the students have a dog. I won't say what company, but it's a very famous company. So you could pretty
Probably
much piece that
deduce it,
together.
yeah.
I remember when I was there to see how our dog was doing, and the other dog, the one that was from we could say, the highest reputation compared to me, was belligerent, reactive, while mine was, of course, next to its person and just kind of minding its own business, not doing anything. I'm not trying to gloat, kinda, but I'm just saying that even those top of the line, I feel like there's a little bit of a mishap on the standard. Because who controls them?
Right.
Right?
Right. They control them.
Right.
Right. So it's to their own standard, which may have been okay at some point, but things may have just changed in the world. The way that aversion is no longer used by kinder people. We are morphing into, or we're already in, science-based positive reinforcement. Things need to change. The ethics need to change in the way that you do things. Going back to the service dog, I actually had a client who purchased a service dog from somewhere in the US. And when the dog got here, could not walk on the streets, could not aid my client. My client had a traumatic brain injury, and so this dog was meant to be able to calm her down and put pressure on the body. And she actually manned up with lawyers because this dog that was given to her was not a service dog, or not given to her, that she paid for.
Mm-hmm.
She had to pay to have it retrained because it was not trained properly. So I don't know the end result of that, but one of the end results is that the dog has been retrained in positive reinforcement and is doing better and is doing more for this client.
Good.
So, like
Wow,
you said,
what a story, though.
That's standard.
Yeah.
We need standards.
That's it. And this is not to contradict myself, even me, even myself. Like, yes, the pet therapy and all of that, like canine education, certified by Canine Education.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because why am I going to follow a non-standard? Like, there isn't a place to go to.
That's right.
You know, it's up to us.
It's up to us.
And that's where I'm kind of going with it. I'm not just thinking about business. I'm thinking about
changing
the world. Oh,
changing the world, people.
Jeez, I'm getting, imagine?
Yeah. Imagine if you didn't have to yell at your dog. No, I'm joking.
Do you ever yell at your dog?
Sometimes if she guys, you don't have to yell all the time, but if she is trying to get through the fence at the rabbit that just ran through, Raska! Yes, it's going to come out. Yeah. It happens. We are human creatures. It's just, we need to know that when you yell at your dog, they are not responding to the words. They are responding to the sound of your voice and the intimidation. They become afraid and they act because they are afraid. Just the way a lot of us kids did with our parents, because that was the generation.
Yeah.
Things are changing. Mental health is very important. Mental health within the family is very important, including the animals. So yes, we need to set new standards. Yes, we need to bring the current population into the current century and implement those standards, because if not, we're dealing with shutdown dogs. We're dealing with dogs that are reactive. We're dealing with dogs that bite. We don't want to deal with that. No one wants to deal with that, especially the people who own the problematic dogs. They just want a lovely dog to sit with at home. We got to change the standards. We got to change how we treat them.
Yeah. I definitely think it's, and I mean this in the most positive way possible, I think it's going to be an uphill battle. It's so unbelievable to me how they think, meaning the aversive dog trainers out there, how they think we're like BSing. No, but really, I'll be the first one to admit that, like, when I see these things, these posts and stuff online, like me, I
do not engage.
I do not engage. But it's just unbelievable to me how people could look at the science behind that. And someone could give me a lecture on how I shouldn't be eating a seed oil.
Right.
Right? But yet, when we start talking about this and that in the dog training world, it's like they could barely feel it, or this is a scam, so that the veterinarians prescribe more medications. Oh yeah, that one's a big one. That's
wow.
With our local competitors. There are many of them that talk a lot of stuff with the veterinarians.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's quite abnormal in my mind for you to look at the scientific terms of why these things are happening, put two and two together, and still kind of come out with like, no, that's BS.
So there's still a lot of people that will look at science and will not agree with it. And I don't want to put this as a blanket statement, but it's a limitation in that person's ability to grow, I think. Science is fact. Opinions are opinion. Your opinion may be the same as the science. Great, because then you're going to jump on board with the science. But if your opinion, which you've had ingrained in your brain for 45, 55 years, is not the same as the science, it's very hard to change that. Those are neural pathways that have been built for the past 25 years, let's just say. It's the same as me dealing with a dog who has bitten its groomer, and his neural pathways are set as to when she grabs my paw, she cuts my nails, and I freaking hate it. Whereas I'm rebuilding the pathway to say, give me your paw. I'll cut your nail when you're ready. That pathway needs to be worked on over and over and over.
And that takes time.
That takes time. And that dog is mentally a 2-year-old. You have the ability to rewire earlier aged brains than you do a 45-year-old human that has critical thinking and that has an ego.
Yeah, this is very true.
That ego and aversion are kind of tied together quite a bit because you're in control. You're the master. You're the dominant one. We like to hear that, right? But really, you're not going to get anywhere in life if you're a dominant person. You got to work with people. You got to work together. You got to have some heart. You got to have some compassion. And why not give that to the animals as well?
Exactly.
I'm not saying aversion training doesn't work. It does, but they're scared.
Yeah. And I can admit, I mean, I have on my podcasts. It was so hard for me to make that switch.
Tell me a little bit about that switch.
And it just came a lot to Dr. Ian Dunbar, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It really did. It's just the logic and the science, and then following up with figuring out the literature and finding that, like the factual evidence.
Yeah.
It just made so much sense.
Yes.
Like the classical conditioning, this and that. But even then, I was still very, but when I pop the dog, I get what I need. For me, you have no idea how powerful it felt to walk into someone's home. They're crying because the dog is doing XYZ. And in literally 20 seconds, the dog stops doing it. And you feel so great. Like serotonin, dopamine. I mean, you're just like...
Client rebooks.
Yeah, and then
client is happy.
Client's praising you. Oh my God, you are the god of dog trainers. I mean, even to someone who is, just humble and this, how do you not kind of feed into that and be like, yeah.
You fluff your feathers. You're proud of that.
That's it. So then when it was like, oh man, nothing happened. Nothing happened on that session. And then it was like, oh, the customer is going to think it's going to take forever.
Okay, are you referring to nothing happened in that session as a
positive,
using science-based?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So nothing happened, right? Or
I love this. This is very intriguing.
Yeah.
This is
yeah. And so kind of wrapping your brain around that, going back into your car and kind of saying to yourself like, oh man, I hope they're happy because nothing really happened, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, because we have to undo this, this, and this. And so it was a big change for me.
Definitely.
And the aversive trainers that are still going around, that is the number one thing they talk about.
Nothing will happen in the first session.
If you go with a positive reinforcement trainer. If you hire me, we will need 1 session, or we will need, 2 sessions to do this. And so the positive reviews that come into light from these people are because, what are we? Look at our life right now. Netflix, no commercials, Amazon, we can order shit right away, right?
Instant gratification.
Instant gratification. And that is correlated to everything.
Yep.
I don't want to spend 8 weeks working on my dog's heel.
Right.
I want to put on a pinch and have my dog walking that same day. Or I want to put on that e-collar, and when I freaking hit that button, my dog is coming back to me, and I don't have to worry about this crap anymore. And that is the standard that needs to change.
Absolutely.
And it's an uphill battle, and I get flack from all angles in that dilemma. I guess that's a curse of being in business for as long as I have. But I noticed that when I talked, I'm going on a tangent here a little bit again,
Bring it.
but I'll tell you something that I noticed. I noticed that one of the number one excuses that aversive method dog trainers use, balance trainers, alpha rule trainers, whatever you want to call them, they talk about the new era of positive reinforcement trainers. Let me explain that to you.
Yes, please.
What I mean is that they try to say that the positive reinforcement trainers, they don't have the experience of the bad and the ugly, like the aggression and this and that. And so they don't know what they're talking about. They think it's all sunshine and rainbows. So they use that as a way to get someone who, I mean, if you think about it logically, it kind of makes sense. I'm hyphening here,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah.
But it makes sense in the sense of like, yeah, I mean, what do they know? My dog is trying to kill people. What does that person know about the treats and this and that? And so when I finally opened up in the podcasts and I talked about how I was that trainer, and then I became this trainer that I am now, that was, I won't name names, but you know who you are if you still listen to me. I had multiple trainers attack me because I guess I hit a nerve in the sense that I was that, so meaning I'm saying I was you, and now I'm better than you, right? And so I guess I didn't say that, but in their mind,
Yes.
you know,
They took it as an attack.
They took it as an attack because now they couldn't justify positive reinforcement training in the sense of, oh, they don't know what we go through, kind of thing.
However, you went through it.
Exactly.
The 10 years prior to that.
Exactly. And so the number one excuse you will hear from these people is that positive reinforcement trainers, they don't know what they're talking about. They're too new and they don't have that knowledge of XYZ, like the aggression. They always go back to that.
So, you know, it's hard to deal with an aggressive dog in the sense of, because positive reinforcement, going back to what you just said, there will be some sessions where maybe something doesn't happen right away. Because the dog, you're undoing things, and the dog has to learn, oh, there's humans out there that I can trust. I don't know about that. And sometimes it takes a few sessions for them to trust us to lay down in front of us. Because laying down for a dog, unless they're in a sphinx position, laying down for a dog is putting them in a vulnerable state.
Absolutely.
It can be hard for a positive reinforcement person to work with aggressive dogs because we will do it in a fashion that is not angry, that is not punishing them for their aggressive behavior. We actually, if you go out there and do some research about positive reinforcement trainers that deal with aggression, there is Michael Shikashio. I think he's based out of the US. I'm not sure, but I think he does online and physical in-person seminars in Canada as well. He actually doesn't go to the house of the aggressive dog. He works virtually with the family until the dog is in a point where they can now start to work together physically. So just because it's done in a different method doesn't mean that we can't do it.
Yeah.
It's that they think we can't fix it in a session or two. And that's probably the reality because we're undoing the trauma that the dog has gone through and the reality that the dog has come to know, but we now have to switch it over into a kinder, force-free, trust-based relationship. And, you know, there's so much to say. Aversion trainers feel that they have control over the animal once they've, quote unquote, fixed it. You never have control over an animal. An animal is an animal. If they feel that they're threatened for their life, they're going to attack you regardless. But if you work in a positive reinforcement scenario and you're constantly building that trust bank, that animal actually loves you in a different way. They love you with their whole heart and their brain. Their brain is not second guessing that you're going to all of a sudden take away their food bowl or all of a sudden pop their leash or choke them with the collar because they've reacted to a squirrel. That's not where we're going. We're going based on, let's teach this dog to use its brain. Let's teach this dog to have the right responses, the responses that we reinforce, the ones we want. Sure, we reinforce it with a cookie, but there are some dogs out there that are not food motivated. And you have to reinforce them with play, or with affection, or with just a good girl because everything else freaks them out. There's ways to do it. It just might take longer. But here's the thing. If you have, and maybe you can give us some input on this, if you have a 2-year-old, because I don't have kids and you have kids, so you can share me that. If you have a 2-year-old that's having trouble learning, are you just going to pop its collar? Are you just going to smack it a little bit until it remembers its ABCs? I don't think so.
Right.
Right? I think you're probably going to work at the ABCs every day, 3 times a day, develop the consistency, make your child understand that you're there, you're a trusting, loving parent, and that you're going to guide them in the right way.
Exactly. And you couldn't say it better. That's really what it comes down to. And I use very similar kind of like analogies all the time. I find one that kind of hits people in a good way is I'll use the analogy of like my dad took my sister and I and just kind of kicked us into the water. Okay? To this day, I'm terrified of the water.
Oh,
and
okay.
my sister is a fish.
Okay.
Okay? And so this is where I kind of go to get people to understand that I'm not saying you will mess up your dog. What I'm saying, though, is that you basically have a 50-50 chance that you're going to mess them up.
Right.
They might come out fine, because how many times, and the reason why I use that analogy is I don't know how many times I hear the excuse of, my dad hit me with a belt, I turned out fine.
Did you really,
You know,
though?
right? So, I get that so often. The logic as to why it's okay to do that. Mm-hmm. And the other big one I get is like, oh, if you put the e-collar on your hand or even on your neck, okay? There's one element that they keep forgetting about. They say, you see, I press the button, I go, okay, I feel a little zap, but it's okay, it's fine. The biggest difference, though, is that it's with a child. So go ahead and randomly grab a kid. Because no, this is more realistic.
It is real, yeah.
Put it on a kid. Do not tell them what it is. You can't tell them because I know what it is. I'm shocking myself. I put it around my neck. I'm pressing the button. I know that I'm about to get shocked. Now, what you're doing to the dog, though, is completely different. It's like getting a toddler, putting that necklace. Hey, it's a little necklace. Here you go, sweetie. Okay?
Poor child.
Putting that on, and then when that kid does something you don't like, you zap it. That, and it could be the lowest setting, I don't care what you tell me, that kid will become freaking traumatized.
Absolutely.
And if you ask me, I hope if you're listening and you're still thinking about that, I hope you just kind of get that in your brain, because to me, that is as realistic as it gets. Mm-hmm. You can't do this to an adult because the dogs are not adults. They don't have that brain
They don't
capacity.
have the exactly.
You know,
They
so
don't have the logical thinking to figure out why you're doing this to them.
exactly.
They just know, oh my God, when I touch my nose to the back patio door, because you don't want to clean up nose marks or whatever, when I touch my nose there, I get zapped. So eventually I'm not going to touch it. That's just, well, they're being a little bit smart in that sense. They're controlling their environment so they don't get punished.
Yeah, but here's the downfall. While they're touching their nose at the back patio door, they're also looking at the dog across the street.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so now not only is the zap stopping them from touching the window, but it's also getting them to associate that that thing over there is causing this to happen.
Exactly.
Because they're a toddler and they don't understand it.
Exactly.
And so that's where that 50-50 dilemma comes in of either my dog is going to start being aggressive towards dogs or whatever.
Yep.
Or my dog is going to still be fine.
Yep.
And so it's like, do you want to take the risk, number one, and also think about that thought process of the kids and this and that, right?
Yeah.
I think we're going way over.
That's okay. We had a great time.
But yeah, it was awesome. So everyone, I need you to stay tuned because I have a feeling this was so great. I love this. We're probably going to have more podcasts. No pressure.
Because we can't shut up, guys.
Yeah, we can't. And on top of it, we are definitely getting into, I guess, the starting period of making this a reality. So I have a question for you out there, who's ever listening. What would you say would be, especially if you want to get into dog training or pet sitting or grooming, especially force-free grooming, if there's one thing that you would want to learn about, that you would want to pay for a course where you can actually use this as part of your career to do XYZ, we want to hear from you. We want to know what that would be. Would it be grooming? Would it be dog training?
Would it be getting your animals comfortable going to the vet and getting their vaccinations? Would it be how to handle your reactive dog? How to handle your puppy?
Exactly. Or would it even be you saying, you know what, Josh, Sam, I got that all covered. I just want to know more about business. What can I do business-wise to build? Maybe you already have a company and maybe you're just trying to figure out, how do I get to that next level? We can help with all of that. So we're interested to hear what you want from us.
Yeah, don't forget, combined, we've got over 30 years of education, and we've got 2 businesses that have survived the years, survived COVID, and we're still going.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to the future.
Me too. This is going to be great. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Sam, thank you so much.
Oh my God, my pleasure. Looking forward to it.
We will talk soon.
Sounds good.
All right.